So the last thing we discuss about the operators and operands, and especially when you want to write expressions, you need to understand how to write something in a proper manner. So for example, if you want to write down 2 plus 3, we know that plus is the operator. And then 2 and 3 are the operands, right? So we discuss about the symbols that we will use when it comes to arithmetic operators, right? The next thing is you need to also understand whenever you write any mathematical expression, there's an order we call operator precedence, very important. So as in, you work in mathematics, you have to follow the same rules. Almost all the cases that you prompt with the parentheses, then you have exponentiation or power. Then multiplication, division are the same precedence. Then subtraction and addition, they are the same precedence. So whenever you have expression where you have same precedence, you have to simplify it. You have to work it from left to right. Whereas there's one operator you have to be very careful. If you use exponentiation, exponent, that should go from right to left. That's what you need to remember. Right. Although we discuss these operations on numbers, if you can try whether this will work with strings as well. So for example, in this particular case, let me try a couple of operators, right? Let me try a couple of operators with the strings. For example, if I put like 15 minus 1. Obviously, you know that this should not work because although it's a number, but we put as a string, and then what we have is a number. And obviously, Python will complain that it's unsupported work for the operator subtraction because it's not working. So similar goes with like multiplying with two strings, right? But then again, if you try the last two statement here, if you have two strings, right? You will see that it'll actually, merge the two strings. So make a note of this. This is not really the addition. This is called concatenation. So when it comes to strings, make a note that if you have two strings and if you have plus operator, it works as a concatenation. So it will merge. So a small question for you to, answer in the chat. What about this? If I put this, what is the outcome? Although it is two numbers, yes, we represent it as two string. So like Nuan, Parakrama, Pavani, and Phoenicia said. So what happened is just merged. Make a note of this. It's two numbers, yes, I agree, but it's represented as two strings. So it merged. And this is what we get out. Thanks for answering. So let me use the next one. So we have a string and we have a number. We multiply it. And if you do this, you will get an output for this operator as well, because this is called a repetition in Python. So if you have a string and a number, especially integer value, what happens, it will repeat. So fun into 3 means you repeat fun 3 times. So if you ask me like when we could use these, yes, there are many places we use these operators. For example, in early days when we didn't have the graphical user interface, this is how we draw lines, for example. I mean, like you can notice that I use stars here to draw it at a line. But if you use like dash, right, you will get a dash line. But then if you use a underscore, you will get actually a line, right? So although these operators actually could be used in the practice as well, right? So I think you got what I need, operator on a string. Generally, none of the operators you can use it, but there are 2 operators you can use. Addition operation with 2 strings, but this is called string concatenation, and multiplication operation with a string and an integer value. So this is repetition. Make a note of this. Now that we have discussed about the different type, we need sometimes to convert types in between, right? So I will give you about like some time you to try this. Yes. Now these converter functions again very useful whenever you have a different data type, and if you want to transform or convert into another data type, you can use converter function. So when we have int, you could try to convert a floating point number, it works. Try string value. Okay, it's not working, right? So you need to understand when this is working, when this is not working. So likewise, float, if you have 3, yes. Float, if you have 3 like this, yes, it's working. Float, yes, it's working. So make a note of this. This is very important you to understand which one works when. String values, yes, 3 working. Yeah, it works, right? So make a note of this, and you need to understand when you are going to use this. Very important. And simply, if you have like this, for example, 2.999, what happens is it will not round off. It just gives you the integer part of it. So make a note of this as well. But remember, this is not going to work, right? This will work, but this will not work, right? Because it's mixed and it will not extract the value. So you have to be careful when you are using convert functions. There are cases it will work. There are cases it will not work. So we need to make a decision like when to use these convert operations. Right, let's move on. So I'll come to the input output, very important, because otherwise without input and output, our programs will not be very useful, especially whenever you want to get something from the user. So whenever you want to get an input or interact with your user, we can use input, right? So if you just use input, this is what will happen. If you just use input, you will notice that we have a prompt here, right? And then we'll press enter. And you can notice that the prompt is waiting for our input. So let me type my name. Okay, so you can notice that the my name is taken as a string value, right? So, but the problem is when you're designing a problem, you have to be very careful. You have to provide the user what to enter. So therefore, you have to tell what to enter, right? So whatever you put as inside, put as a string, will be displayed to the user like this, so that user knows what to enter. So I can now, without any issue, I can, type my name because it tells me what to enter. Okay. Third one, if you have, this is not very useful. If you want to further manipulate what you are getting from the user, you have to store in a variable. So let me say int. So what happens now? Whatever I enter here will be stored as int. The usefulness of this is you can manipulate, like you can say print10 will print my name, or we can further manipulate. You can say hello, right? You notice that. So I think now it is clear how to get something from the user, especially if you're expecting some string value. This is the format we have to use. We have to use input function. Whatever you are going to show to the user should be put into inside as a string. And then you store it as an int, right? So let's look at how to get a number as well. So for example, if you want a number, so I can start with input. If you use enter a number, you will notice whatever the number I input here will be taken as it is, but it's as a string value. So this is problematic because when you want to further manipulate, we know that if you have a string, Python will treat it especially. So therefore, you need to convert this. So that's why we learned the converter function in the previous one. Depending on what number you want to get it, you have to get it the equivalent converter function. For example, the number as an integer value. So you better put as an int. So for example, I'm going to use int. I'm going to say int input enter number. So I will use int if I need the number as integer value. But remember that again, if the user enters even the number is a floating point number, then there's a problem because you can't convert. Remember we discussed earlier? So therefore, if you need a floating point number, then you have to say float. So in the program, if you are like, so depend on your requirement, you have to decide which converter you are going to use. So for example, in our case, if let's say we are decided to use int, then this is how we should get. And then if you say 10, we know that 10 is stored inside. Okay, so now you can say print n, or you can say print as yes, you can further manipulate your in. Okay, good. So having said that, let's move on to the next one. So I hope you are comfortable with input. Right. Whenever you use output, you can also use print function. And we discussed last time, if you need more information, you can use help, right? So for example, if you type help print, this command will give you more information about the help and how to use it. Right. So when you use help print, this is what you will get. And you need to understand each and every place what happens here. Let me explain um, how you may use it. According to my help function, you have print, sorry, value. But the later version, you can have star and arg, which you can have variable arguments, which means that you can have multiple values here. So therefore, you can print multiple values. We have to comma separate them, right? So this is very important you understand. So how you may actually use when you make print statement. Right. For example, let's say I want to use two print statements, right? You can comma separate them. So let's say we are going to have our module INM, let's say 403, and then computer applications. So remember, so this is two arguments. So even if I can actually separate into three, let's say I'm going to separate out this, and let's say this is, I'm going to have a mix this time. Now you can notice you can have any number of, values or arguments with print. But then again, I will also discuss use of separation. The step is to decide how to separate the two values. Currently, it's a space, but you can change. Let's say if I put a comma, so in between the two values, we can have a comma in between, right? So let's have a, two numbers, even 20. It will print like this. Make a note of that. It just simply separate the value with this. Yes. And you can use anything you want. Okay. So that's how it works. Right? You can make a note of this. Very, very important. Right. So that's about you getting help in print. And this is called basic print statement. This is called basic print statement. Right. The next one, we are going to talk about the what we call the formatted outputs. The formatted output means when you want to control over the outcome of your output, then you can use formatted outcome, right? For example, now when you want to display a number, how exactly you want to display can be decided with formatted output, right? So that's what we need to discuss there. Okay, some examples from output. So in this one, we are using two variables. We have variable A and B. So let me say A equals 28, B equals 15. So we know when you print A, it will print 28. When you say print B, A comma B, we are printing multiple values and we have a space in between. Then we have A comma B comma separation. We have a comma, which means we know it will print the two numbers as it is, and in between we have a comma. Right. But if you try to use print A plus, this is not working. Now, if you ask me why plus operator is not working, because we have an integer and then we have a string and then we have integer again. Now, solution to this could be several, but one of the easiest way to convert and display as it is you can convert the numbers into string values. Right. Now, let's see how to use empty lines in the print. Right. Again, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. One is you can use print without any value, which will insert empty line. So to do this, I will open up new file. So you can notice now, in this particular case, I have two print statements. And when you print it, it will print as it is. We have PGIS and we have computer applications. No space in between. But if you want to have a space in between, we can have print without any argument like this. And when you run this one, now you can notice that there's a space in between. Right. Good. We can move on. So in this particular case, what we have discussed is how to use simple print. The next thing that I'm going to use is how to properly format string. Now, when I say formatting, depending on how we want to represent something, we can decide the format, right? So in this particular case, we are first going to discuss with module operator or mod operator. So this is the operator we are going to use. Sometimes this is called string module operator. So the syntax of formatting is you have some formatting instruction here, and then the module operator, and then you have a number. So this is the format instruction we are going to use. Okay. Right. So let me show you how to do this. So in this particular case, I'm going to use the shell. You can use anything that to print it here. So for example, I can have a number. So I'm going to say A, some decimal number. We will use it like this, right? And we know that when we print as it is, it will print exactly as we have stored in A, right? So it will print exactly as it is. But then again, depending on how you want to format it, you can provide what we call the formatting instruction. So in formatted way, as I told you earlier, we have to have a formatting instruction and we can have the number, right? In our case, I will focus only on numbers. So I will have a formatting instruction, string module operator, and the number, right? So now here we have to tell exactly how we want to represent it. So depending on our representation, we can use different characters. S, you can represent as a string value, right? And if you put D, you can represent as a integer value. And if you put F, you represent as a floating point number. Now, let's say we want to restrict on the numbers that we have here. So when you want to restrict the number of decimal places, what you need to do is you will put a restriction. So decimal point, and you put a number. This number determines how many decimal points you are going to retain. So if I put 0.2f, what it means, we are going to limit the number into 2 decimal places. Notice that this is rounded off. So in case if I want to restrict it to three, decimal points, we'll put 0.3 like this, right? So that's about the number of decimal points. Now, if you want to restrict on how many characters you are going to use for representing the number, for example, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So if you put 7, there's no issue. We will use exactly 7 characters to display the number. So what if we increase the number? So for example, let me say 12. See what happens. If you use a larger value here, then it will insert empty characters. You can see it uses 12 to represent this number. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right. Very important. So depending on your requirement, you can have a control over number of decimal places, and then you can have a control over the total number of digits you are going to use to display this number. In this way, you can format the number according to your requirements. Now, let me discuss how to include other values as well. For example, let's say we want to include this value as a price. So I can say, okay, price rupees. And you see what happens. This part will print as it is. Now, this is a formatting string for whatever the values we put it here, right? So you can notice that now we have included some text with the number itself when you are printing. So it's very flexible way of formatting your outcome. Okay, now I'm going to discuss how to use, multiple values, right? So use of multiple values are easy. You have to have 2 formatting instructions. So for example, I have to say print, you have a formatting instruction, and we have a number, right? Now, when you have multiple numbers, you have to put it in this format, a comma, and another number, some number like this. So make a note of this. You have to make it in this format. This is called the tuple format. And within the string, you can have the formatting. So for example, I can say the first number are 2 decimal places. And the second number, I can say 1 decimal place. So in this form, you can notice that we formatted the 2 values, and we will have this value. Similar to this, if you want to exchange the values, yes, we can say, okay, 3.1459, and then we can have 8. So I hope now you understood how we may use string module operator, right? Let me explain the last one again. So we know that we have to use this format, right? and some number here to format. When we want to use multiple values, we have to use brackets and the two numbers. So right now I'm using a number and a variable. So I have to format these two strings, right? So first I have to tell how to format the first number. So I'm going to say, okay, first number, I'm going to limit to 2 decimal places. So the F stands for floating point number, right? And 0.2 indicate that we are going to limit it into 2 decimal places. And then we are going to add n in between. The second number, I'm going to say restrict into 1 decimal place. So for the two numbers, you have to define the formatting instruction twice. And when I press enter, you will now notice this is the first number. And we will format it like a floating point number with 2 decimal places. And we get 3.14. Second number, that is A, we format into 1 decimal place. And it will end up with 1 decimal place. Sachi, is it clear now, or you want me to explain another way? Okay, thank you. Right. So in Python, there are multiple ways of printing statements or output format, and this is the oldest one. That means initially when they use formatted output, they have recommended this string module of it. But later they have changed this. Now this time they have used a special method or function format. So the format method is used, or format function is used to format the number. And this is the formatting instruction. So they have used print, and in curly brackets, they included index and the format, and dot format method, format function, and whatever the number. So this is how we can format using format function. So let me explain again. So I'm going to start with the same number. We will have A. And if you say print A, it will print as it is. We are comfortable up to this point. So the formatting instruction for this time is, we have curly brackets, dot, format, and A. This is how we have to use this. So in this particular case, we have a single number. So if you want to specify index, we have to put 0 because we have just one number. And then we have a colon. Then we have format. So if I want to restrict it to 2 decimal places, this is how I should type. 0 indicates our first number. In Python, we have an index 0. And then format instruction, we are very clear now. F is floating point. 0.2 means we limit the number of decimal places into 2 decimal places. and we get this. Since we have just one value, you don't have to use 0. So therefore, if you have just one value, you don't need this. Okay. So you know what to do now. So you can use this representation. So if you don't need any decimal places, you can put 0. So that's also perfectly all right. If you need like 3 decimal places, you will put it like this. Right. Next one. If you want to control over the number of characters you use, you can use a number before the decimal point. That also we have discussed earlier. We are using 7 digits to represent the numbers. And here we are using twelve digits. So that also I have explained early. So the number 12 is the total number of digits we are going to use to represent the number. And if you want to include just, some message, you can also include within this. So this is the format instruction. And whatever the number or message you want to print, you can print. So we will say price rupees. Okay, now let me explain how to print 2 numbers. So to print 2, we can use print. This is the dot format. We'll say A, 3.14159. So this is the format we have to use. 2 values, right? And then we have to use 2 formats, right? So that's understood. We have to format A, and then we have to format B as well. So I can say 0 to indicate the first formatting will limit to 2 decimal places. And we will say 1, I will say 1 decimal. And you can notice this one. So in this particular case, I'm using 0 to indicate the first value, 1 to indicate the second value. And one interesting in this formatting is you can change like this. So here 1 refer to the second value, 0 refer to the first value. So you can easily exchange the values, right? So that's what they have suggested with the format function. So in this particular case, if I run this, so you will notice that the second number we limit to 2 decimal places. We limit to first value to 1 decimal place. Right. Are we clear up to this point? And let's then move on to the next one. Last one. Oh, this is the newest. Oh, this is what is recommended now if you want to format your output, right? So let's start with that. Recently, they have introduced something called formatted string literals, which call F strings. So everything you represent in this format as a F and a string. So you can notice that we have a string. And within that string, we have curly brackets, you have a number and the formatting instruction. Okay, let me do the same with the same examples. So I'm going to use the same numbers and I'm going to discuss same things. So for example, in this format, we will write print F and a string. This is the format. And within this, we can have a number, in our case A, colon, and then we have a formatting instruction. So for example, if I want to make it to 2 decimal places, we'll put 2 decimal places like this. Sorry, I made a mistake here. I forgot the bracket actually. Right. So you can notice that it's simple. You have a variable and then you have a number format together in the same place. So therefore, I mean, if you want to change it to 3 decimal places, it's like this. And then if you want to, decide on number of digits for the representation, you can put the same thing, same way we have discussed earlier as well. So you can increase the number by just putting 12. We'll, add some extra spaces in the beginning. And similarly, if you need some messages, you can put it in the inside. Same thing, only thing, what you need to understand how it represents. You have a F and a string. Everything else is the same. So if you want to have 2 numbers, like in our previous case, right? So we can have print F and a string. If you have 2 numbers, you have to have 2 number formats. So you have to have 2 number formats like this. And the first one, we have A. The second one, we have 3.14159. Yeah, without any formatting, we'll print as it is. If you need formatting instructions, then let's say 2 decimal places. Here we can say, okay, 1 decimal places, right? So nothing different from what we have discussed earlier. So it will be very, very similar. Right. Okay. So any questions up to this point? So let me explain again what you are supposed to do. I want you to write a Python script to generate the following outcome. So during the program execution, you should ask a person's first name, last name, and date of birth. And finally, your program should output in this format. Okay. So that's the requirement. So I have 2 questions first. How many input statements do you think you need? I need everybody to answer in the chat. So my question was how many inputs? So you can notice that you have to get first name, one input, last name, two inputs, month, three inputs, day, four inputs, year, five inputs, right? Good. My second question, how many outputs? Earlier we discussed inputs. How many output statements we have here? Or simply we can say how many print statements you need. How many print statements you need. Yes, when you use print statement, so these first line from input, second line from input. What about the third line? Is it an input or output? That's output, right? We are not getting anything in here. So therefore, this will be an output or print statement. Then next three are input statement. Last one again print statement. Actually, correct answer should be like two print statements we need, right? So let's start there. So I'm going to get a new file. So I'm going to say new file, right? I'm going to use it. So the first one, we have to get the first name. So the command should be input statement. And we have to say enter your first name. And the idea is we can store in this some variable name. Let me use F name to say that it's the first name. Right. And let's print it. So currently I have two lines in my program. Let me save. I'm going to say, okay, program 3. So let me run this. Right now, my program asks my first name. Let me put first name. And that's all, right? Okay. Let's do the second one. We'll say enter your last name. So I have update my file now. I have 3 lines, 2 input statement, 1 print statement. Let me run it. Okay, it asks me my first name, last name, and it will print both first name and last name. Third line, it's just printing some message. So I can simply use print statement, enter your date of birth. That's all, right? So if I run this time you will notice it asks my first name, last name, and just print first name and last name. And you see there are 4 lines here because now I'm printing the third line as well. Fourth line, we have to get month. I'm going to say month. Input and sorry, it just month. Then day, input day, year, right. So currently I'm getting month, day, and year. So let's just run this. Right. So it asks my first name, month, let me say okay, this is what I'm getting. Right. Unfortunately, this is not what I need, right? So let me try this. What I need. So what I need is I need to get name, first name, last name, then month, day, year, and then we have to have a very interesting output we expect. What is the expected output? Right? The expected output is name of the person, and we have to include was born on March 10, 1940 with full stop. I need, complete answer like this. This is what I explain, what I expect. Yes. Okay. Just let me know how to do that. So let's say you have some string values. If you use a string modulo, this is how you may actually use. So you can use S and S. Let me add some text and S. So you can notice this formatting instruction S for string. Then in string module operator, right? And let's have 3 strings. Three values. So you can notice here, we use string module operator here with 3 values. Similar to this, if you use formatting instruction, you have like this dot format and the values. Format instruction will be the same. Sorry, I missed the bracket. I forgot curly brackets, right? If you need placeholders, you can put it like this. Right. Third way, so in this one, you have to say name as it is. Actually, you don't need this as well. Let me put that. You don't have to do it because strings you can as it is. Okay, let me share this one. Sorry about that. Yes. Um, right. Few things that I would like to discuss with the strings. So the first one is if you are using string module operator, I hope you remember we put the formatting string and then we have module operator and then whatever the values we'll have in this format. So therefore, in our case, if you want to present some string values, this is the format you have to use, right? So S is stand for strings, right? So for example, if you have first name as Sampath and last name as, and then friend is Sampath. So you need to format to say print. I will use the same. And then simply you have to comma separate the variables. F name, L name, L name. Okay. L name. So this is the name I have to, sorry about that. Okay, so this is how we have to use. So let me put this correctly, L name. Right? So this is the format that you need to follow in case if you want to represent using a string module operator. Similar way, if you want to use the format operator, then again you have a formatting string, F name, L name, and F frame. So you can notice how you have actually represented in that form. You can have string like this, right? Similar way, if you want to use F string, it will be quite easy. So for example, you can say one way is you can say print F string, and within the F string, you can have brackets, and then so you can say F name, it's a string form, and then L name, it's a string form, and then friend, and string format. So this is one. Actually, since this is string, you don't have to type as well. Simply, you can use this form. So make a note of this. So I think now you should be able to format the string the way you want. So what I have discussed about the use of strings in formatted output. So in this example, I have used first name as my name, right? We have first name and last name. Let me explain from the beginning. So what I've used is I have used my first name as sample, and then last name as Digal, and then I have another variable friend someone. So if I discuss the very first implementation where we have used string module operator, since we have represented as strings, the formatted string, we use S to represent strings. And I told you we have to use brackets and the comma separate the values, right? When you have multiple values, and this is the formatting string. So we have the first value, first name, last name, and then we have and then my friend name. So, and this is what I'm getting. Same thing if you want to format it with the dot format, slightly different. So this time you are using curly brackets and an index value to indicate which value, right? So first name, right? And then this is the last name, and this is the friend name. So we get the value. Finally, if you want to use f-strings, it's direct. You use a variable together with the formatting instruction. So here we just use S. We are not using any formatting here. So therefore, if you want, you can remove. You can just use this. This format works because it will print the value as it is without any formatting instruction. So I hope now you should be able to give me the answer based on this while properly formatting your instructions. So let's run one more time. So when I run my code and provide my details, this is the formatting right now. Right. So it's a simple print statement. So let's try to use output formatting that we have discussed. Right now, what we need is we want to say first name was born on. So I will use, first I will use string module operator. So the formatting is we have string module operator, and then we have all this S as a tuple, and then we have to provide only location. So S, my first name, last name was born on, and then month October 20. Yes, and then comma I can put it, and then year, right, with the full stop. That's all. So hope this will work. So let me run again. You can notice now, again, let me put my values. So I think this is exactly what we needed it, with all the commas and the full stops, depending on exactly the way I want to print. Yes. Second one, if you try to, okay, so I will give it as exercise for you, right? Give me the formatting method as well as F string. Can you convert the same? Okay, so the second one is also we discuss using format method. The last one is easy. The simplest form, you can simply use, functions. We can say f name and l name was born on, then month, day, and you have to have comma, and here you have full stop. That's all. This is the simplest form that we can have. Okay. So I was a mistake here. So let me go back and correct it. I forgot F here. And should work. So let me run this. So I think now we have observed how to formatting various ways in Python. And what I recommended you to follow from this point on was the latest, representation we call F strings. So make sure, when when we develop program from this point onwards, although we discuss all the three techniques, all the three ways of different output formatting in Python, I recommend you to use F strings, which we call the Pythonian way of outputting information, right? So make a note of that. Although we discussed the previous two techniques, because it's very important that when you refer books and the website, you're familiar with these various different formatting, but the latest one is what we call the F strings. So make sure that you are familiar with that. Right. With that said, we can move to the next exercise. Okay, second example and also exercise for you. I want you to write the Python script for this and share with me again. So from this time onwards, you don't have to, try other techniques. We'll use F strings to format our outputs. So use F strings when you answer this particular question. So let's start it.